Well, good afternoon. Be awesome at FM listeners, watchers, followers. We're on a little late here. We had some technical difficulties. We believe that there are thunderstorms in the area and the microwaves might have affected our broadcasting. But with a little technical assistance from our tech producer, we're back online here. I'm your host for this afternoon. My name is Paul Anastasi. Um, and I have a co-host with me, Joshua Peach, there. And we have a great guest today, a young facilities director that I have a lot of respect for. And I'm a mentee of mine, and Zesis Alapakis is here. He works for the Salem Public Schools. We're going to call him Z because it's a lot easier, saves up a lot of our video time. So we're just going to go with Z. And looking forward, I'm thinking if this host thing works out, that we might end up with, Be Awesome at FM with PA. That's Qualitinium, I think, if you look up that element. But I see there might be a future there. So enough about me. Let's get to Z. Z, one of our typical things that we do here is we like to ask our host, you know, did you just wake up one day and say, hey, I want to be a facilities director? How did this happen? Let's go back. Give us a little history here. I know both your parents immigrated from Greece here to the U.S., and they do own a pizza restaurant in Belmont. So there's a shout out there for Nick's 2 in Belmont for
Shameless.
those people that are local and listening. That's a shameless plug. I have no problem with that. But tell us about it. Tell us what it was like growing up in your family and what led you to what I know is the man today.
Thank you for having me. First of all, I feel it's a pleasure to be under the elite company of you two. So yeah, I mean, basically it all started. We came back here in 2004 from Greece. We were living there we went there to move out there for 4 years. Didn't really work out. So, we came back here in 2004. We opened up Nick's Place in Belmont. Was doing that. That was my first love in life, was the restaurant business. I did that up until I got a part-time job with Salem Public Schools in 2015. 20 hours a week job, just cleaning classrooms. At that time, Salem introduced breakfast in class in all schools, so they needed some extra custodial help with cleaning the classrooms with food and all that was introduced. I did that for a couple months. The summer came, not sure if I had, a job. I asked my boss at the time, hey, can I stick around? And he hired me as a junior building custodian. Did that for 4 years. I started off at Bates Elementary School as a junior building custodian, working the 2 to 10 shift. I fell in love with it instantly. I kind of took the mantra from the restaurant business where I have under 11 minutes to, make sure everybody's happy. So I kind of just used that mantra and took it over to the school side. After my 4 years as a junior building custodian, my goal when I came to Salem was to, get my own building as a senior building custodian. I took on Collins Middle School at the time. I wanted to say 3 years ago. I did that for a year, and I feel like I aced that. And one thing with me is I like keeping myself motivated. I like a challenge.
Right.
With COVID coming along, the daily operations manager position came to place. I did that for a year, and I loved it.
So just to be clear, that's like the number 2. That's like the assistant to the facilities director.
Facilities director, yes.
Yep. Because everyone, I think, has a different title for that position.
Yep.
I just want to make sure everyone understands.
Yeah. So I did that for a year. Was planning on doing it for 2 to 3 years more. At the time, my predecessor took a position somewhere else. The director of facilities position came up, and it was my chance to shine. And at that time, I knew this is what I wanted to do. So here we are, one year later.
So I think in a couple of ways, you were very lucky. You were lucky to start to have parents that taught you such great work ethic.
Definitely.
And what the meaning of work really is. But then going into the position, A lot of times in our position, we're either taking over for someone who's retired and already gone, or someone who says, I'll stick with you for a couple of days. Here's the keys, and then they're gone. But you were lucky enough to work with Ryan Monk, who we all know. He's one of our MFAA members for a year. So I think that's it's a short period of time, but it's longer than we normally get.
Definitely.
I know you would have liked a little bit more time there, but from what I've seen and working with you for the past, how many was it? Is it 6 or 8 months now? That you're like a sponge. You've absorbed everything you can. You're taking it on. The day to day, as most of us know it in the facilities world, it's not an easy task. And people have heard me say this many times. No one calls our phone to say, "Hi, how's your mother?"
Nope.
It's their toilets broke, their roof's leaking. They want a new color paint on their walls, and we need to negotiate that. And from what I've seen, you just keep a nice, calm demeanor. You do that. You get the work done. And you have in Salem, how many buildings do you have total?
11 buildings total.
11 buildings. So you have. Can you describe them? A high school, middle school?
So we have our main high school campus. We have 2 alternative high schools in the Witch City Mall in downtown Salem. We have 1 middle school, and then we have another K through 8, which is elementary / middle school, and then the rest are elementary schools that we have.
So that's really interesting. I mean,
It's a mix.
You have a school and a mall.
Yes.
I've had a lot of interesting, relocations, like putting our preschool in with our administration building. I've moved middle school kids into the high school for a while to do construction, but I can honestly say I've never known of a school in a mall. What's that like? I mean, people just like they're buying shoes and then they walk by the front door and
it's different.
Lunch and they pick up a new coat and
it's
different.
It's one-stop shop, and you can grab a slice of pizza. You can go to school. You can there's a spy place in there. It's interesting. The mall's interesting. Yeah, there's a 3-story garage.
So you're renting that space, correct?
Yeah, we're renting that space. Yeah.
So do you do the upkeep on it, or does the landlord do the upkeep?
So the upkeep is the landlord. All we're really in charge is the interior space.
Okay.
How many kids and what grades is it?
High school.
Okay.
High school. It's about total combined, both Salem Prep and New Liberty. I want to say around 95 kids.
So it's not your traditional high school.
No,
it's the alternative.
Alternative, yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which part of our facility master plan is we want to either eventually relocate, bring them into our buildings, or create a new building.
Yeah.
For them.
Yeah, there was a time when the malls are kind of going by the wayside anyway, but that when they do, instead of tearing them down, there's been a lot of conversations of turning them into higher education satellite campuses. But I've never heard of a high school in the mall. That'd be kind of interesting.
Yeah, we
head over to Orange Julius for lunch.
Yeah, and Cinnabons for breakfast. It's here now. Yeah. So much for those healthy choices that we put in all our cafeterias, right?
Yeah, that's wild.
So you just went through your graduation, I know.
Yes.
Which was another interesting task. You don't do it on the football field. You don't do it in the gymnasium. You do it in the town center. Is that
town center? Yes, on Salem Common for the high school graduation.
For the high school graduation.
The Collins Middle School graduation we did actually on Tuesday, and it was great. That was on Bertram Field, on our field, and everything went off without a hitch.
So you have to take everything that has to do with graduation and transport it to the center of town. And create a graduation space out of a common.
Exactly.
Wow.
It's a lot more intricate.
Yeah. So like how many guys? What does that take?
6 during the day and then 8 for cleanup.
Wow.
Because we have to be in and out of the common by a certain time. Because just like that, the Salem Commons has their own kind of committee where it's, we have to rent it out. We have to book it a certain time in advance, and it's booked solid throughout the whole year.
Wow. And is that the space that we see every year when we're watching the news with all the witches during Halloween, and they're all running through the commons? So we go from witches brews to graduation, all in the same place.
That's where we did the we did the ice bucket challenge for the MFAA conference and was there in the common.
Right across from the hotel, right? What's the name of the hotel?
The Hawthorne Hotel.
Yeah, we had the MFAA conference at the Hawthorne, and we did the ice. That was back when the ice bucket challenge was the big thing to do. We did it right there on the commons. But so that's. I mean, you cover it all. You've got school in a mall. You're doing graduation in the commons. People are doing potions all around you. and your high school, I mean, it's got shop classes. You have an full auto shop, and tell us a little bit about that. Trades, we're always talking about the trades. We just need more tradesmen out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And again, this summer in particular, we're trying to, bring our shops back to life. I'm doing extensive work for our CTE programs, along with the CTE director, which is a great guy. We've hired, a couple of new automotive teachers. So yeah, it's been great.
Wow. That's really great, because we talked. One of our first episodes we did was with the a Voc Tech school, and there's just so few technical people out there, tradespeople. I think our world now really needs a lot more of that. I mean, we know what it's like trying to get a vendor to come in,
and they're coming back. I think they're coming back full force. I think
that's good. I think there's a big need for that. So you actually have on staff facilities people, right? You have tradespeople?
Yes.
On staff?
An HVAC technician and a general maintenance technician.
So just two?
Just two.
And then others is contracted service? Is that the way it works?
Yes. It's a mixture. It's a hybrid of both.
Yeah. And you have all your food services right there in the high school? Your office is in the high school? Right in
the high school, yeah. This is ground zero for us over here.
Yeah. Ground zero. It all happens right there.
Exactly.
There's even buses being stored there, I see, at one end of the campus. So
there is, yeah.
Transportation, facilities, everything.
This is completely off topic, but is there a large Portuguese population in Salem?
In Salem, I think it's up and coming. The Portuguese population.
I'm on the high school page, and this is the first page I've ever seen that allows you to translate the website to Portuguese. So I'm guessing that there's a bunch of my people up there, and I didn't realize it. I thought we were just down here on the South Shore. So
why don't you translate it for us and read it back to us?
No, that's all right. You guys, you don't even. I was actually messing around with it, and it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And that's a brand new website too. That website's been launched, I want to say 4 or 5 months now.
Yeah, I have not actually been to the high school. I think I've been to just about every school building this side of the Mississippi, and I wanted to take a look at it. And when I went on the website, I'm looking through it, and it's great looking space, but not one that I've been to yet. So I'm gonna have to put that on the list, Paul.
Yeah, and I think as you drive through Salem, the Collins Middle School just sits up on the hill. That's the prominent school building in town.
That's our crown jewel, yes.
Yeah, it sits up there so prominent, and the high school kind of like is around the back behind, a little side street. But Collins is right out there in the middle. And
you can't see the high school from the main road, but Collins definitely, and it overpowers you. And
that's, to me, and I've seen many buildings, it looks like you've kept that up very well. I mean, it's a red brick building. The roof, what's the roof material? What's that like there?
It went through a extensive green repair in 2012.
Oh, okay.
So everything from roof, windows to building envelope is brand new as of 2012.
Great.
And then the interior also is beautiful.
Yeah. So, and without, giving away any special top secret information from the town, the high school, you plan on doing work at the high school?
Yes. So, we have a facilities master plan in place. We've hired a firm. We're going to MSBA to hopefully, get either a brand new high school or a renovated high school, because it's time. It's time.
That building's tired.
Yeah, this building's tired. And we want better for the kids in Salem.
Yeah. So what kind of, I'm going to switch back to custodians now. What kind of training programs do you have for the custodians? Like, I know you're hiring new custodians. When they come in, how do you train them? I mean, is it, here's a broom, go clean those rooms? How's that work?
So as a brand new custodian would come in, first off, we would start them with the O'Hara training. We would have them look at a couple of training videos that was provided to us from Next Gen.
Yep.
And then, I pair them up with a strong senior for the first couple of days in the 6 to 2 shift, just to get accustomed, to, even if they're not going to be working 6 to 2, I want them to kind of get the feel of both shifts. So I pair them off with a strong senior, and then once they're ready to go, I'll pair them off, at night along with another night custodian. And that's really it, and I kind of just give them what they need to know, give them the tools, and, along with the training, they're good to go. And, I have found that we do like reoccurring trainings with the new hires. So every, say, 2 weeks, myself or my daily operations manager, we check in with them, and it's worked out great. And I've hired this past year alone, I think I've hired 7 new custodians.
Wow. And what's your total custodial workforce? How many?
It's 30 right now. We're up to 39 custodians.
Wow, that's a big turnover. That's a lot of new bodies coming in. And
when I started in 2015, we were at 17 full-time custodians.
wow.
So
are you finding, like a lot of us, that it's hard to get custodians to
yes,
candidates?
yes.
And what do you do? Do you go out there and like hang papers on the telephone poles?
Word of mouth. A lot of the men and women in my department are great, and I start with them first. Hey, do you have anybody interested? Do you know anybody that wants to work in this field? We start there first. I put it out on SalemK12.org, and we see what we can get. The good thing is we have a 9-month probation period.
Right.
That's enough time to figure out if somebody's how they're going to be for the future.
Gonna make it, yeah.
Exactly.
Yes. So I know years ago, like when I started, back years ago, long time ago, like horse and wagon days, it seemed like there was the uncle and the cousin and dads and sons that were doing the work, and then all of a sudden, for a while there, in maybe the early 2000s, that kind of went by the wayside. But from what you're telling me, it's word of mouth a lot, and people are bringing in friends that they know and their cousin, and I think that's great. That says a lot for the job. Mm-hmm. If you can bring someone in to a job that you're doing because you love it so much and you know it has a real purpose, that you're willing to bring in a family member to do the work. I'm sure it's the same at the pizza shop, right? A lot of family working there. I'm not sure that they all had the same choice, though, right? As the custodians.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's great. And then the maintenance, the technicians, are they custodians that came up to be technicians, or did you hire them?
My general maintenance worker was a custodian at one point. This is before I came to the city, and he's been a general maintenance now for, I want to say, 15 years. And
right.
My HVAC technician just closed his first year.
Okay.
And that's been a game changer for us.
Yeah.
An in-house HVAC technician here.
Yeah, I think if you had to have one trade in-house, that's probably the most useful trade to bring in.
Yeah, my next one I hope is a full-time electrician.
Yeah. Yeah. So Josh, when we do visit the high school, it's something that's I've never seen before, that you have cafeterias on 3 different levels.
3 different levels. Yes.
3 levels of cafeteria.
They're huge.
Wow.
They're around 6,700 square feet each.
Wow.
And it's like each one is serving different types of meals, correct?
Different types of meals, yeah. So the 3rd floor is just burgers, hot dogs, grill food. The 2nd floor we do Mexican week, Chinese week, American week, just different, ethnicities, different types of foods. And then the first one is really just traditional, cafeteria food.
And do you find that students eat at one more than the other, or do they kind of work their way through them?
They work their way through them, but I mean, right now, and every time I see is the 3rd floor is bustling always.
Yeah. Okay. And your custodial staff, you have is there 3 custodians or 1 for each cafeteria during lunch? How does that work?
So there's 2 full-time custodians during the day, and then I have 1 split shift that helps out at least with the 3rd cafeteria.
Yeah.
And then I have 5 custodians at night.
Wow. And the food services, the food is cooked at one level, or do they have 3 separate levels of cooking?
So food is cooked on the basement floor, except for the grill
Okay.
on the 3rd floor. For the 1st and 2nd floor cafeterias, they just bring the food up from the main
They
level.
transfer them up.
Mhm.
Wow, that's I had never seen a cafeterias set up that way. And the day that we walked around and saw that, it was something to see. But also, this school, Josh, you'll see it's a big school. I'm not really sure how many square feet.
465,000 square feet.
465,000 square feet,
Wow.
That's a monster.
and it's a tired building, I think is a fair description of it.
Mhm.
But it's still so well kept up. I think your staff does a great job keeping it up. I mean, it was clean. There were students everywhere. Students sitting in the hallways learning. Students coming in and out, traveling back and forth. Who was eating? Who was moving? And still well kept up. I think you guys deserve a lot of credit for the way they keep up their building.
Thank you. Yeah, it's one of the buildings that never closes.
Yeah,
Something going on here every day, Saturday, Sunday. It never closes.
yeah. And so, speaking of never closes, are all your buildings used at night and on weekends? Do people rent? There's a lot of rental that goes on.
There isn't at the high school. So the high school never closes. Every other school, 10 o'clock, we shut it down.
Yeah.
And nothing really on, we have some events here and there on weekends, but the high school is just 24/7 nonstop. That's something I am looking into. I want to kind of boost our rental.
Yeah.
For the facilities, just to, bring more money in for our department by, renting out our facilities. We have a brand new Bertram Field facility that I want to start renting more to the public and for sporting
Yeah.
events.
That's a beautiful field. I've seen that. I've parked up that way when I go to Collins Middle School. So, like, theater is used at night, and on weekends you have theater programs, and you have that stuff. I'm sorry, but I'm really stuck on the school in the mall. Do people rent the school in the mall
No.
after hours? No. Okay, so that's just school hours.
That's just school hours. Yep.
All right, but you have custodians in there at night to clean.
I have 1 custodian split shift there to kind of cover both. Before COVID, we had a 4-hour half shift custodian there, but now with COVID, we have an 8-hour shift to cover the front and the back,
Right.
and it works out perfectly.
So that's great. That's a lot of moving parts in that. In that system.
Definitely.
So I might have missed this because I was trying to look this. That cafeteria setup. You have multiple sessions of lunch, or are all your students able to have lunch at one? Like when I was in high school, at a million years ago, there was 3 lunch periods, right? You had we had the sophomore, and then the junior, and then the senior, broken down. And I've never heard of a 3-floor cafeteria with many things to choose from. So is that everybody all at once, or is it
Everybody all at once.
wow?
Go to which floor you want.
And I can see Josh's wheels turning. He wants to know if he can start on the 3rd floor and work
Yeah.
his way down. I figured that'd be coming sooner or later.
Get my steps in while
Right.
I'm getting, tacos, chicken nuggets, and sloppy joes. They still make sloppy joes for the school lunch?
No, they don't.
I ought to bring that back.
Sloppy Joes are gone. What was it? Turkey a la King used to be big. Those are going way back now.
That is wild.
Yeah.
I was just trying to wrap my head around just the logistic difficulty of having 3 separate lunches in one space. Now you're putting, it's good from a cleanup perspective and a management perspective in that way, but that's a lot. That's wild. I've never actually. Did you ever have a school like that, Paul, with everybody had lunch at the same time?
No, I was surprised when we took the tour through the school and just to see the stacked cafeterias.
And they're not broken up by grade. You can go to any one of the 3 floors and sit at any of the places. It's
Exactly. in the beginning they were real quick, but now it's kind of just, this is the time, go grab what you want to eat and come back at that time. And now with ever since COVID, we've opened up we have like a middle section in between our building where it's just open.
Mm-hmm. Like a courtyard?
Yeah, like a courtyard almost. And we put tables and chairs out there, and they're utilizing that. So, I want to kind of clean up that space and kind of beautify that space over the summer for the new school year.
Yeah. That's one of the most perplexing spaces in schools, especially in Massachusetts, that were built, the brick boxes, I call them, that were built in like the 50s and 60s. Just about every single school that was built in that era seems to have at least one courtyard, and they're almost never used.
Right.
They just let them get overgrown and everything. And I'm just sitting here going, when we're talking about safety and security and space, you're letting your kids go out the front door and sit outside by the parking lot to have lunch. Why wouldn't you open that space up and, like what you're saying, beautify it and make it a space for people to go to where they can feel safe, get some fresh air, a little bit of vitamin D, and enjoy it? Like every tour I do of a school building that's got a courtyard, I'm like, why aren't you using this space?
Yeah.
Build a garden. Like how cool would that be to build a garden where you could source food, put some fruit trees, do something. So good for you for doing that. Because as you can tell, that's one of my main sticking points of aggravation when I look at stuff and go, why the heck aren't we doing anything with this space?
Yeah, and like I said, COVID's been tough, but it has helped us out in many aspects where it's kind of opened our eyes of like new things we can do. Eating inside, for using our courtyards that we never used before. Things of that nature.
I think a lot of times, Josh, that it's so hard to service them, and that's why it's so easy to just let them go. Like, think about it. To cut that grass, you got to walk a lawnmower through the building.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just playing kind of like today's a different day than the 1950s because I've been going to Home Depot at least 3 times a week, eyeballing this battery powered lawnmower, a walk behind, because I want to get some added steps in. I don't have a massive lawn, but you literally have the battery operated lawnmowers. They don't smell. They got no gasoline. Right. They literally they fold and stack so you can lean it against the wall. It takes up absolutely zero floor space. Like, there's so many tools at our disposal today that could allow proper maintenance of that a whole lot easier. I mean, you take a custodial closet just outside, near a courtyard, because there's almost, correct me if I'm wrong, but I bet within a short walking distance, there's a custodial closet to the courtyard. Right. It's like I know your building. I've never been there before, but I know your building.
Right across the hall.
Right across the hall. So try to tell me that you can't have a weed trimmer, a battery powered weed trimmer and lawnmower in that custodial closet, leaning up against the wall, and you're good to go. Just I can't be the only person thinking like this, right?
Yeah.
It only makes prudent sense. And like talking about COVID, like, let's get these spaces back. I love them. That's when and Paul, I'm sure you've seen 1,000 of them.
Yeah.
You see the space, and you literally, like, for me, I go back in time. Like, I go back to thinking about, like, watching Grease the movie or something, right? When the space was all open and everybody was having fun and doing all this stuff. And, like, I look at these courtyards and I go, how cool would it be to have a couple benches out here? And, like, I envision this beautified space, and it's typically, like, knee-high weeds and nothing out there. And no access to the door. Typically got a key lock on it that nobody's got the key to.
Yeah, right.
Rusted shut,
Yeah. Right.
So,
it's.
We had one in Watertown. When I went to school, Watertown High, the building was an L shape, and it was open to the street. We had like a little track that was set up in there and this green space. Shortly after I left, they did a large renovation, and they closed off that L and made it like a diamond-shaped courtyard. So they put an addition across the opening. The history is that way back when that L was just an I, the original building, one building, the street went through there. So in that courtyard is water service, sewer service, drainage for rain, and one day it all backed up.
Oh, wow.
And we had to they drove a bobcat through the building to get it into the courtyard, and they craned a backhoe over the roof and brought it down into the courtyard to do the work they had to do on what was the old street underneath.
Wow.
But in the end, we used it for outdoor dining. We once everything was cleaned up, one side of it was butted up against the cafeteria, and the other wall was against the new gym. So we used it like during basketball games at halftime. We opened that up, and people could go outside and grab a slice of pizza, and they could hang out, and it became utilized space. But it was really tough to service it when we had that large problem. Now that's an anomaly, but still, it was something to see with bobcats driving through the building and taking out loads of dirt.
Yeah. See, I'm curious because I haven't done before COVID. When you brought up kind of COVID, before COVID, I was doing. I could do 20 to 30 site visits to schools a month. I mean, anytime. I mean, I literally would just get in my car and drive to a district that I know and just ask them, ask somebody to give me a tour when I was working with them, and so I've seen a lot of spaces. I'm curious with COVID. We're talking about food and eating in other places and all this stuff. Have you guys done a lot with regard to traffic, like foot traffic? I'm sure you've had to put signs down and arrows and everything. And because I'll tell you where I'm going with this is the supermarket. So I have claustrophobic anxiety in open spaces. Like I'm really like the worst thing that you could do was walk in my direction in the aisle, like on the left-hand side, because I stay on the right. I treat aisles at the supermarket like I'm driving my car. You always stay on the right, even when there's something you need on the left, right?
Totally agree.
And so when COVID was happening, they had all the arrows down and every aisle was one way, and it was a little bit of an aggravation, but I loved it. I mean, I felt free and wide open. And so what I've seen at the airports is they had all the stuff in place, right? And it was really cool. People figured out what 6 feet was because there were dots on the ground and there were arrows in the direction that they wanted you to walk in. There were even some airports that put a line at the baggage claim that pushed people back so that they weren't on top of each other, right? And now all of a sudden we're not post-COVID, but everybody's feeling more comfortable and people are pulling up all those signs and everybody's going back to leaning over each other and the baggage claim and everything. And I'm just curious if you've obviously instituted all that stuff, and then two, did you keep it in place? Like how does that, or did you just kind of go back to letting everybody walk in whatever direction they want and all that stuff?
So couple of things. So when COVID first came, when we first shut down back in 2020, it was, I think it was in March. So we lost the last 3 months of the school year.
Yep.
We were able to open successfully that September, without skipping a beat. Not at full capacity. It was a hybrid model that we did. And it worked out perfectly. But again, we instilled, we had dots with lines outside of our restrooms. You can only go, get two students at a time per restroom. We weren't letting anybody from the public come in unless you had an appointment or a really good reason to be in the school. We had stanchions. We kind of cornered off paths. You can only go right to go, to the central office, and you have to loop around. Nobody crossed with each other. Everything was 6 feet apart, even in classrooms. And that's how we were able to successfully do it. One of the things that we learned and, we did and we've still kept with is we did restroom checklists.
Yep.
So, we were disinfecting restrooms every 4 hours. And we've kept on with that, even though the protocols have calmed down a lot. That's one thing that we did keep. I still have my custodial staff checking these bathrooms 4 times a day. And it just peace of mind to the staff. They needed to be checked anyways. We just, before COVID, we were checking them, once during the day and then once at night to clean them. But now you go in there, you check, you make sure they're stocked, make sure they're clean, we disinfect, and it's worked really good for us.
And I think COVID has done a lot of good things for us in the schools. It's made us aware of the spaces that we have and even the students. I thought the students did a great job during COVID. It's not easy for a middle school kid or a high school kid to walk on the opposite side of the corridor when they see a friend of theirs that's down the hall and you want to jump across and talk to them, or in a stairwell, you want to goof around and push with each other. I mean, that's what kids do when you're at those ages. But I think they did They really did a great job. The students need to be commended on this. And Herculean evidence is the custodial staff, the people that came to work every day. I mean, there was a short period of time that the custodians were sent home, but it was short. When you look back at it, I don't know about how you guys handled it in Salem, but I was working in Northbridge at the time, and those custodians were only home for maybe a week.
Yeah, it was 1 week. Yeah, when COVID first started, I was actually the senior building custodian of Collins Middle School, and I remember the governor put a cease and desist order on cleaning out. We would just go in and just kind of be like security guards in the buildings because nobody was around. We were still serving food for free. We had breakfast, lunch, and dinner that we were giving to Salem residents out of our schools still. So we were here to help out food services and stuff like that. But it was me with a group of 5 other custodians, and we just 80s rock and roll, and we started changing filters.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just to keep the day going.
Yeah, I mean, I told the story, and I'm not sure if I've told it on this podcast before, that the guys that I was working with in Northbridge, I told them that they needed to clean all of the gym equipment in the gym, all of the, what the locker looks like, the storage unit looks like in the gym. And they took out every ball, basketball, soccer ball, volleyball, and they created a line of trash barrels. The first one was full of water, and they wet the ball. The second one they put it in had the cleaner in it, and they pulled it up. They rinsed it in the third one, and then they used the disinfectant in the last one, and they rolled the ball down to the guy at the end who had towels and was drying them off. We had 4 guys in an assembly line cleaning everything in that gym storage. And I just told them to clean it. I didn't tell them how to do it. They went in there. These 4 guys went in there on their own, and they figured out that system. And I caught up with them maybe after an hour after they started, and it was like, wow, look at you guys.
Yep.
That's pretty good.
No, I would echo what you said, Paul, which is, I think, looking back, I mean, we were miserable. I mean, there was a lot of misery, and it was not, I think we're all painting a different picture of what good was. But COVID from specifically for education institutions, I think COVID was something that we've come out a whole lot better, a lot smarter. I did a podcast in February of 2020, just before the lockdown. One of my last trips was to Houston, and I did a podcast with Greg Lookabaugh on another channel, who's a cleaning expert, an industry expert. And, he made a comment to me, and we didn't even know what COVID was going to be or how it was going to look, but he said, we need to clean for health and not appearance. And I think that was a lot of places, a lot of environments were doing just that. Looks good enough. Wiping it down, not understanding what dwell time is, not understanding a lot of these different things. So it's really kind of interesting. We somehow have Paul twice. Do you see this?
I don't see me at all on my screen. It's that thunderstorm that's coming through.
Yeah,
there we are.
So I don't know if you guys have heard this. My dogs were barking, and the sky literally just went pitch black. It is pouring in thunder and lightning here. So, well, we got some Sue McCann. Hey, how are you? Good to see you. Sue's here.
Hi, Sue.
He says hello, and then Matt Oliver. This is his first live show. He's been watching and listening, and a fan. And I got my inventory in for you, Matt. I sent you an email last week, I think. So there's something going out in the mail here for you shortly. David Young, power watcher of the live ones. Very cool. We had one of our high schools in an old movie theater. That'd be kind of cool.
Oh yeah, look at that. Yeah.
And then Scott Carpenter. Yeah, that's a site visit I would love to make. Scott Carpenter was actually with us in Salem when we did the Ice Bucket Challenge.
Right.
Because he and I ended up leaving the haunted hotel. Was it the Hawthorne, right? Is that what you said it was? Yeah. I had the room that's like the haunted room. The shower is actually in a closet. Like you open the closet door and there's a shower in there, and it was like the haunted room.
But Scott and I went to the museum together. We went to the Witch Museum together.
Yep.
And then all the years I've lived here, I've never been to the Salem Witch Museum.
Yeah.
It took the North Carolina guy to get me to go to the Witch Museum in Salem, Mass.
Yeah. No, I remember it. He caught a bird with me to Orlando, and I was presented with an award at the Gaylord Hotel in Orlando from a good friend, Ron McCulley. This is how my brain works. I all of a sudden one trigger event, and then I can go through my whole life story with you. So, yeah, Cart, come on up. We'll, I'm sure Z could give us a tour. I'm gonna try to figure out how to get some Salem swag. That shirt's pretty cool with the witch on it.
And it's Under Armour too. Look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Z doesn't mess around. I already know this. I mean, I've only met him in person once and talked to him twice, and I already know this. He's the real deal, Holyfield. So, but thinking about that, this is again how my brain works. Is shifting gears on this. What's it like running a district, being a facility director for a district in a tourist town? I mean, your population ebbs and flows and spikes like crazy. I mean, the Halloween has got to be. Like, are there eggs flying everywhere and pumpkins? I've never made it up there. I don't go, like, I'm large, like I said, in kind of anxiety and supermarkets. I don't go to places where there's 5,000 people dressed up like witches and goblins like that.
In the dark.
Yeah, in the dark, yeah. I mean, are they just throwing pumpkins and eggs everywhere? I mean, what's that like?
It's crazy. I mean, in October, we revolve around Halloween.
Yeah.
It's to the point where one of my schools, Saltonstall Elementary School, their break is during Halloween week. That's the only school that doesn't have classes.
Wow.
Just because it's in downtown Salem, and it's yeah. So
and you've got Salem State University, which is a large college that also
without Halloween. We're already with Salem State University here. We have a lot of people coming to town.
Wow. I mean, Salem isn't huge, but I could see. Issue of getting from one place to another. Other than the mall, what's kind of the longest distance between two schools?
The longest distance between two schools, I want to say, is Witchcraft, which is on the Peabody-Salem line.
There's a school called Witchcraft.
Of course there is. Of course there is.
I love that. I love it.
Witchcraft Elementary School. And then Bentley Elementary School is by Salem Willows.
Wow.
Yeah.
Witchcraft Elementary School. I feel like I wish I could go back in time and just go to Witchcraft Elementary School so I could tell people.
Now, I know this is a touchy subject in some school departments, but are the kids allowed to, do they do Halloween in the schools? Do they celebrate Halloween? Because a lot of schools, they don't do it.
Really?
Why not?
Yeah,
it has a religious connotation.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, and if you dig deep enough, and I know where I was in Newton, they didn't they wouldn't allow Halloween.
See, I would have looked at it differently as far as the inclusive piece, because I know that there's kids that probably don't get to do Halloween because the parents or the families or wherever they are don't have the means for costumes. But I mean, in a previous life, we had an awesome mascot costume, and every Halloween I would lead a Halloween parade for the kids. I never really thought about it that way.
Yeah. So I got a great Halloween story. In one of my elementary schools in Newton, the aftercare program was a contracted service, so they weren't being paid by the public schools. So the principal says, it was when they first did it, he says, no Halloween. There was front page, it was the news channels were there and everything. So the aftercare program in the basement said, we're not part of the public schools. Our kids are having Halloween after class. So they had a little haunted house set up, and they were little kids. They were early elementary kids, and they had a whole bunch of really cool stuff in there. Well, they had the old wooden coffin leaning up against the wall, and I get a call one day that one of the sprinkler pipes, the hanger let go, and the sprinkler pipe came down. So I go to the building, and it's during Halloween, and there was a length of sprinkler pipe, 1.5 inches, heavy duty threaded sprinkler pipe where the hanger let go and it swung on the thread and came down. It landed on the coffin. The head of it landed on the coffin and stopped the pipe from coming down on two kids that were sitting on the floor playing on the computer.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
It was like because this director said we're having Halloween, that coffin stopped the sprinkler pipe from coming down across those two kids, and that's a big, heavy pipe, as you know. It's like, wow. You know, look at that. The witches were with us. The good witches. They were watching over those kids.
So before we got another comment. Hi, Mr. Peach and crew. Great conversation as always from Heidi Prisco at Inspired Technology. Another one that follows our events. I think she's been on almost every live one. But hello, Heidi. Thanks for stopping in again. Appreciate you being here. Comments are working. I think this you being the primary host on this whole thing, and me just sitting back in the tech space is working here, Paul.
That's it. Be awesome at FM with PA. Yeah. Keep your eyes on. Watch for it.
So Z, here's a question for you. Mm-hmm. How do we find more Zs? Do we go to Greece? Do we have to go all the way to Greece to find, Well,
Belmont Center. If we could just go to Belmont Center, maybe.
Well, I mean, here's the reality. There's 26,000 some odd public school districts in the United States today, right? 50% of the directors of facilities are most likely going to be retiring in the next 5 to 7 years. That means that there's 13,000 approximately facility director positions that need to be filled. And we said earlier that the trades, we had a gap where trades people they weren't going to school for trades and we're light. So I think you're awesome. I mean, Paul told me about you, months ago, and he's like, you got to meet Z. And then I meet you, and I'm like, wow, this guy is smiling. He loves his job. You obviously could have gone into the family business, which you do in your spare time, we'll call it. You're supporting your families, which I got to get there for a pie because I hear they're delicious. But how do we get more Z's in the world to get the energy, the excitement, the ethic, and the everything that you bring to the table, the energy and the interest? Like, how do we promote better that this is really an amazing opportunity for people?
It's tough. You got to have the drive. You definitely have to have the passion. What helped not only me, but I think Salem as a whole is my predecessor, Ryan Monks. When he came here, he kind of instilled on us like that. Hey, because there's we had a lot of men and women that we're just custodians. Like, no, you're not just custodians. If you really wanted, you can do it. So I think just the directors that have come before us, kind of paving the way. Ryan was crucial in helping me out, and I was like a sponge, trying to learn as much as I could from him.
Did he pave the way, but did he include career pathing with you? Like, did he sit down with you and say, what do you want to do when you grow up? Because I think that's a key problem that's missing in business in general.
I approached him.
Yeah.
I was kind of, I was done with Collins. I felt like my job there was done. I turned it around from, a school that wasn't, performing custodial and from the facilities wise. And 1 year I turned it around. So I kind of, like, what's next? Should I go get my plumber's license? What's more that I can do to turn the tides, to make the city look great. So that's how, I ended up as the daily operations manager.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like, like we need to look, into our departments and just see who's motivated and who wants to better themselves. Like right now, I just hired a daily operations manager. And again, I hired, he was a senior building custodian at Horace Mann Elementary School right across the street. And I had 3 people that I interviewed, 2 were in-house and 1 was, another facilities director in Beverly. And, just the passion, the drive came from one of my in-house guys.
And I think that's, I talked about in the old days, the families that were working together and people bringing their cousins in. And there was a lot of, back before the facilities director's job was a true profession job where we had, now we have all these things. Before it was for me, we used to call it the Heartbeat Award. It was the custodian whose heart was beating longer than anyone else got the job. But now, if you can bring a custodian up, raise him up out of the ranks to the facilities director or an assistant like you have, which is so key to bring someone in as a number 2 and he can be mentored by you. I think that's great. If we can get back to bringing them up from the bottom, from underneath us, and raise those custodians up, because first of all, so many people don't know what they do. their work's done at night.
Exactly.
People just expect to come in and oh yeah, the classroom's clean and we go on with our day. They don't know what it took to get that, to do that. And a lot of those guys, they don't get, the notice like they should. But if you can pull someone up out of the ranks of custodian and make them your number 2 now, and hopefully someday he's going to say, I want your job. That's the best thing you could do. That's the best candidate you could ever find right there.
And I think, instilling more training on custodians will just, empower them that much more.
Right.
Not just, scrubbing a toilet and mopping a floor.
Right.
Right. Well, understanding what kind of training that they want, not just what they need. I mean, you got to teach them about bloodborne pathogens and cleaning process and everything else, but maybe they want to get trained in, there's so many ways to get to that next step of whatever they want. Maybe they want to be a public speaker. Maybe they want to be able to present at a school committee meeting. Maybe they want to, be able to take a leadership role and don't know. How much leadership training is there? Paul, when we're talking about this stuff and you're doing all these mentorships with great people like Z, I'd love to know more. I don't think society as a whole does career pathing right. I know that it's very rare. What typically happens that I see is a leader will say they see something in someone that person doesn't see in themselves, but maybe that person doesn't want to see it. Like, how many people do you ever hear you sit down with someone and say, hey, Paul, what do you want to do when you grow up at 65? Do you want to be on a podcast? Do you want to be working in 4 different districts? Do you want to do this stuff? Like, how do you want to see yourself and envision yourself? And then the next thing is, how do we help get you there?
Right.
Right. And that's what you're talking about, Paul, because you're spot on. When I got into this industry in 1996, it was the good old boy network. It was everybody's friend, and there wasn't accountability the way that there is today. There definitely wasn't the opportunity, and people did. They went from the broom to the room. They started sweeping, and they ended up, before their career was over, becoming a facility director. Does that mean that they're capable and qualified? No, the skills and the trade and what's needed. Z, as you're seeing, you need to be an effective leader. You need to be an effective communicator. You need to be an effective motivator at times, a significant listener. You borderline, you should have your therapist degree by the time you're all done, because you got to hear everybody's problems, not just your employees, right? Like Paul says all the time, nobody's calling to say, hey, how's your mother? They're calling you with problems, right? So those are all skill sets that if you start out as a third shift custodian, I always say to people, typically third shift custodians don't get into that role because they're people, because the brooms don't talk back, right? So there's a lot that needs to go between that and the big C, and I think that's where we're having some challenge.
And I think what helped me over the years is, because I've worked with so many different, custodian men and women in the department throughout the years. I'm coming in here knowing what we need, what they've been asking for that we haven't got. Like, perfect example, yesterday we purchased a brand new piece of equipment, a brand new Ventrax.
Oh, I was going to get to that.
my senior groundsman has been asking for 10 plus years, and yesterday was finally the day, to the point where I don't even think we want to use it because it's so nice. You know what I mean? So,
I'll drive it.
Yeah, right.
I saw yesterday.
Yeah, right. But just like, as soon as I started, we started, like baby steps. Let's all go get the OSHA 10 certificates. Like, a lot of them didn't have OSHA 10 certificates.
Yeah.
Just start there. Who wants more training in various tasks and various, avenues. So it's been working out. And like you said, just listening, that's a big part. Like, I take, again, I have a busy schedule, but I think, to me, it's important to just check in with not only my senior custodians, but my junior building custodians. Just check in periodically. How's it going? What do you need?
Right.
How can I help? That's important.
Yeah. And we do, the MFAA does we've been doing custodial trainings, and I've been involved since the beginning, and then COVID kind of took it to Zoom, which kind of, we lost a lot with that. But the guys, the custodians that come out, you'd see them their first year coming out to the training, and it's, why are you here? And it's because my supervisor sent me, But after they're there for one, and they come back the next year, they're making friends with the guy from the other communities. That's good to see you again. What have you guys done, in the past year? What are you doing that we're not? What are you using? We have vendors that are there showing new products and the latest and greatest things. And one of the things that Kenny Wirtz does, he's the grand marshal of all these events. At lunchtime, while we're checking everybody in at registration, he's recording the different communities. So we might have 11 different communities that are at this one training. And what he does is while they're in their sessions, he Googles each of their websites for each community to find out how many students they have. And then at lunchtime, he announces how many students this body of custodians affect in a positive way every day.
Yep.
And there's so many of the custodians that they're in awe of that number. They don't realize how many kids are affected by their job in a positive way.
Yeah. Not just kids, communities. Like when we're talking, when Z's talking about opening, I mean, you don't be careful what you wish for, Z, when you say you want to open up the building and have people come in it more. I mean, you're talking about, your entire community, every taxpayer, every stakeholder that's in your community, you're making an impact in, even the ones that don't have kids, because their real estate values are completely dictated based on the quality and caliber of the education institution of the community that they live in. I mean, I make no bones about it. The town that I live in has always had a very good school district, very high ranking. We've got a state-of-the-art auditorium, a very rare auditorium that we can seat. You can seat all of your kids for cafeteria, but we can seat all of our kids in one sitting in the auditorium for an event. We've got a 1,200 seat auditorium. That's absolutely gorgeous. I got to stand on the stage for the first time in April. But there's a direct tie to that school being, a top school district, to the property values going up, not just because of the economy. So, I mean, it makes a huge deal and a big difference to all of that. So
that's the first thing people ask, right? When they go to a realtor and they're looking for a place to live, how are the schools?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So that's the first thing they ask.
And when I do come for the tour of the high school, I want to be driven around in the Ventrac, because that thing is amazing. And what's even cooler about that is, I don't know your team, but I can almost guarantee you that your team is going to take care of that as if they own it. It's going to be probably have a thick coat of wax on it. They're going to hose it down and clean it after every use. It's going to be as beautiful a year or two from now. I mean, when you look at equipment, and Paul, you've dealt with equipment for your whole career.
Yep.
I mean, the equipment that's run down and beat up is equipment that's run down and beat up because it's extended its life cycle by probably 2 or 3x. It's not because people don't take care of it. There's a great pride of ownership, not just in the building and the grounds, but also in the equipment that they use, because those are their pieces of art. Those are their tools for their art that they provide, which is an amazing space.
And they know how hard it is to get them. I mean, you said it was 10 years in the making.
Oh yeah.
So they're going to appreciate that, and because they know they're not going to get another one in their career.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
That's it. And they need to make it work, and they need to keep it running and looking good.
Yep. Exactly. No, this has been great. I've learned a lot. I took a bunch of notes, and Z, we're gonna be picking your brain more, because we're on a mission to try to make sure that the schools are filled with operations professionals just like you, that are passionate, that are there for the right reason, that see the reward. I mean, it's not the most, you're not making the most money of anyone, but you're getting an amazing reward, which is called the number one output product in the United States today, which is our kids hitting the workforce and being talented and gifted and flying to the moon and doing all curing diseases and all these other things. So that there's a huge appreciation there for that, and a huge reward in that, in doing that. So thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
So do you have a shout out today, Josh? Because I know I was probably supposed to be the one to get it because I was the host, but I was very busy putting the production together.
Yeah. No, I know. You were up late at night. Yeah. So this is funny. Paul and I were together yesterday afternoon, and Paul works with C in mentoring and doing the program. And so when I looked at Paul yesterday, for those of you that have watched and listened to all 21 now episodes, Paul is a planner. Paul is a prepared guy. He likes to have everything kind of laid out ahead of time. He's doing a big 4-hour presentation, and he's been doing work like crazy to make sure it's all ready. And I'm more of a hot mic guy. And so yesterday we're sitting having a drink, and I just looked at Paul and I said, "Why don't you take the host tomorrow? Because you know Z, and you could drive this thing." And he did a phenomenal job. And I think I'm going to take the back seat on the co-hosts more often, because I like it. I feel like Paul, you'll probably feel this way, but you felt like you always had to be like a step ahead with the questions and preparation and what you want to do. And when you're doing it without having, a whole lot of preparation, it's a lot of listening and processing and putting through, where I just got to let everything sink in, which was great. I love it.
Your brain works a little different than most.
My brain works a lot different.
Anyone that knows you well knows that.
Yeah. You're welcome.
And this is where I can say that, if you like what we're doing, let me know about it. If you don't, email Josh.
Yeah. So for once we can switch roles, which we've got a lot of ratings and reviews this week. So thank you for all that submitted. John Bonney, Bobby Schaub, Scott Klein. I know I'm missing a couple, but they were coming in hot and heavy this week. So really appreciate everybody clicking those 5-star ratings and writing a little bit for a review. We're in the top 10% of podcasts. My goal is for us to be in the top 5% by the end of the summer, and that's a pretty good feat with only 21 episodes. So back to yes, you should have had the story, Paul. But as I was listening and thinking about what I wanted, who I wanted to recognize, and listening to Z's work for the commencement, and we're in commencement month. I mean, most of them happened in the last 2 weeks. But I want to give a shout out for those that don't understand the work that's involved. I want to give a shout out to the maintenance and operations and custodial staff at every school district USA for the month of June. If you know a custodian or a maintenance professional in your community, send them a note, write them a little card, say thank you, because they bust their humps to make sure that your commencement is as professional and as well put together as possible. And when everybody's done throwing the caps and dropping their water bottles and doing, destroying these artificial turf fields, which I can't understand. So there's some things that I'll never understand. Having chairs and all sorts of destructive stuff on artificial turf fields, and thousands of people's walking around and going crazy, and donkey basketball. I'll never understand why we allow donkey basketball in a high school gymnasium. It just doesn't make sense. But I mean, the work that's done, it's tireless, and it's long. And it's just for this little piece of time in life called graduation and commencement. And so I want to make sure that people know that, recognize it, and realize how important that is, and how much pride they have. Because we always talk about, you want to see why it's important what you do. Go sit through your first commencement. Sit through graduation. Watch those people walk across the stage and realize that you had a part, maybe a little part, but you played a part in their ability to get up and get that diploma. And so that's who I'd like to thank this week, and have hopefully some folks recognize it. And even if one person writes a note, an email, a card, or does something for that facility director or superintendent put on their wall of fame to recognize, then job well done.
You talked about the month of June, because I think that's important, because there's not only the commencement, but the next week or two after that, everyone in that building is excited because they're leaving for the summer.
Right.
The teachers are leaving, the kids are leaving, they're excited. And the maintenance staff is gearing up for the jobs that they have to do that they can't do when the buildings are full.
Right.
As everyone's leaving and all excited that they're running out of the building, these guys are planning their jobs that they have to do, because now the building's empty and I've got 10 weeks to get
right
before everybody comes back to school.
Well, I think we're going to have a couple episodes over the summer that we're going to talk about that and showcase it. I think the best example that I have as of recent was when you and I were up at the Facility Masters Conference in New Hampshire, Paul. Yeah. And I know you caught this when we were doing the podcast with Bill Cooper, but it was April vacation. The schools are closed, faculty and staff is out, and the facility staff at the school, the high school that we were having the conference at, they weren't in the classrooms with us because they were having rooftop units installed on the roof, because that was the only time that they could have them done was when nobody was in school. And they wanted to get the job done before the warm weather came in, so they had air conditioning in the school buildings. So that's the stuff that we're gonna definitely do some education this summer on how much work gets done. Bill Cooper, as a matter of fact, on LinkedIn yesterday or the day before, he put all the projects that they're starting now through the summer, And I mean, the punch list is lengthy. And I think a lot of people, I tell him to keep doing that, but I think he does, one of the good things that he does that for is so people realize it.
Yeah.
You know, hey, a lot's going on. We don't just shut the lights off and come back in September and everything looks great. So
it's when the magic happens.
yeah.
The witch thing. That's what it is. Up there in Salem, they got witches. They can make it happen. They
Magic happens when nobody's around.
Yeah.
So no, this was great. So you appreciate it. Great getting to know you, and keep up the awesome work.
No, definitely for having me.
And keep Paul on his toes for a while here.
He's not getting rid of me that easy. I'm sticking around with him.
Good.
I'm learning as much from him as he is from me. So I think it's a good give and take here.
Well, we're gonna figure out a mentor episode or episodes, but that's what you just said, Paul, and you've heard me say it. The everybody talks about mentorship programs, but it's different.
Yep.
Up until about 10 years ago, a mentor was a person older, a couple exits further down the highway, and they had a mentee who was the younger person that's just getting experience and just starting to figure things out and want some of that guidance. And now I'm actually getting off this podcast and I'm going on to my weekly mentorship call. I've got a young man who's 28 years old. He's just a phenomenal, amazing, awesome human being that I had the rare opportunity for us to pair up and build this program that we spend some time every week to. And it wasn't the first call that we had that I'm like, I'm learning more from him than I think he's learning from me. And there's a thing called dual mentorship, which is both parties play a role as mentor and mentee. It's just at different times. And if you can get that in sync, and it is slick. So, well.
All right, so we got to wrap up here. I think it's about time.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the meantime, if you can do those ratings and reviews, great. Keep it up. Thank you for joining us. We've had a whole bunch of stuff going on. I couldn't keep up with all the comments and things, but appreciate it. And if you do, this week only, if you think we're doing great, send it to Paul@beawesome.com. And if we can do better, send it to Josh at Beawesome, because I'm apparently now the complaint department taking this other seat here. So
don't give me the power. That's what happens.
Yeah, I'm going to close it with, if you can be anything, be awesome. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye, everyone.